when the temperature measurements of the bottle were done. We could clarify that in the clarifying questions, however. I believe that it wasn't really good that you had technical issues during the clarifying questions, because that made it really hard for me to make some statements. And also you had no proof for the assumptions you answered, and you couldn't really answer the question for the main assumptions that need to be given for an ideal gas law. One assumption for the ideal gas law is a constant amount of substance, and since you didn't investigate the amount of substance, which also is a negative point, we believe that makes the use of an ideal gas law kind of fishy. The experimental investigation of pressure inside the bottle was also something that we couldn't see during the presentation, and you also, the theory experiment comparison was on a very great detail, also because often when you showed those plots, it wasn't clear whether the straight lines were fixed or whether it was theoretical approaches, also with, for example, the simulation for the heat distribution. It looked as if you used a thermal camera. To the opponent, he mentioned very important aspects such as the missing description of one single jump, which we also thought was the main weakness of the report, and he also mentioned the missing variation of the coin radii, which we also thought was really important. He didn't ask for measurement errors regarding the infrared measurement, and he missed on some important points such as the missing description of the gas, which we found really important, and also he partially presented his own theory while discussing about the noise. During the first point of the discussion, they talked about the noise spectrum, and the opponent claimed that the watt filling rate is important for the noise production, and the reporter answered that he has done no investigations of the natural frequency of the bottle, and that he has done no experimental variation of that. And we agree to the opponent that the filling rate is really important, and that this should have been investigated more by the reporter. The next point of the discussion was the slipping of the coin, and what the impact of that was, and the opponent claimed that the deviations of the theory, that the measurement is a reason of the slipping point, and the reporter answered that he couldn't observe such a behavior, and we partially agree to the opponent that the deviations might have been a reason, even though, for example, the fact that he didn't have a constant amount of substance might also have been a reason for the deviations from theory. The next point was the trajectory of the coin, and again the opponent claimed and criticized that the relevant part of the phenomenon would have been the investigation of one single jump and the quantification of that, and the reporter who claimed that an equilibrium between pressure was what happened there, and he was not able to calculate the angle of the coin over time. We agree to the opponent, and the motion should have been investigated more. If we look at the task, we can see the main expectations that we could derive from the task. And first of all, the reporter was able to give a definition of what a dance and a noise is, and he could also explain why it happened. We believe that the opposition kind of made that point too big in their discussion, and we didn't think it was too relevant. The next point was how the gas behaved. We think that this was a big missing point of the report. He should have investigated that more, and the opposition should have criticized it. He kind of missed the opportunity to criticize him that. The quantification of one jump was a main point, and we agree to the opponent there, and how the dance develops was also a big weakness, since the theory experiment comparison wasn't as sophisticated. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Concluding remarks of the reporter, please.
Thank you for the opponent and reviewer. I'd like to start my final report by answering some of the questions that are brought up in our discussion. So, firstly, about the modeling the gas inside as ideal gas. So, actually, we have analyzed the original van der Waals equation, and then we consider the oxygen and nitrogen in air, which makes up more than 99%. We find that the ideal gas is indeed applicable in this scenario where both pressure and temperature is not extreme. Following on, according to our simulation, there's only a small region at the bottleneck that has a temperature higher than elsewhere in the bottle. So, and this increase in temperature is due to the boundary condition and also the ejection of the air. And in this process, there will be viscous effects. But generally, most of the part of the bottle will remain at low temperature. And actually, we introduced a dimensionless number called the Born number to model the uniform temperature distribution. And by calculating this number, we can assume we can indeed obtain a uniform temperature distribution. Moving on. About the measurements of the temperature of the bottle. So we use an infrared thermometer and we attach multiple metal pieces inside the bottle, and then we can get the temperature of that part by calculating the reflected infrared waves. And we find that the temperature distribution is indeed uniform as the time progresses. Moving on. I'd like to talk about the flipping of the coin, where we, according to our simulation, the exhausting time of the gas is significantly smaller than that of the dance of the coin. Therefore, the air will returns to atmospheric pressure, and the dynamics will be modeled by a simple rotatory movement under the effect of gravity. And also, the dancing height is uniform according to our measurements. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Time for questions from the jury. Ilya was the quickest one this time.
I was very cautious and looked immediately after I asked.
To the reporter, please. On the slide 15, the data points that you were showing, this was one experimental run or average among several experimental
All
runs?
data points are obtained from 15 experimental runs, and we did draw error bars, but they are small that you can't notice.
So that means that all bumps on the curves are systematic, right?
Yes.
Kent?
So the reporter, can I just ask, how significant was the thermal mass of the pieces of metal that you put in the bottle compared to, like, how does the temperature of the metal compare to the temperature of the air?
Yeah. So basically, firstly, the metal piece we use is very thin, and secondly, the surface area is just sufficient for IR thermometer to work. So I think that the thermodynamic properties of the metal piece will not affect the overall phenomenon.
Okay, a quick question. So you didn't try in any way to somehow calculate the coefficient for the heat flux or something like that?
The coefficient of the heat flux, I think, is relevant with both the geometry, shape, and surface state of the.
But you didn't try to calculate anything to compare it with your experiment?
Yeah, we did not.
Okay, thank you, Alexandra, and then Eric.
I had just a question about the different bottles that you used. In some of the slides, you have plastic and glass bottle, but I think they varied in many different parameters other than plastic, other than material. Did you account for that in some way?
So you may notice that other parameters such as volume is varied. So, but actually, according to our theory, the volume of the bottle will not have the effect on the dancing interval and the dancing height. This is because regardless of the total volume inside the bottle, once the pressure of the air reaches critical pressure, the coin will dance. And this critical pressure and also the rate of the heat flux is independent from the bottle volume. So actually, by changing the material of the bottle, the only parameter we change is the cooling coefficient.
Okay, Eric?
I have a question to the reporter. So you introduced this factor X to account for the eccentricity of the coin.
Yes.
How did you determine if it's a constant, is it a fit?
Yes. So in our experiment, we place a camera. We place a camera 2 meters vertically above the bottleneck, and we also use a thread which has a certain mass on the end to determine its vertical position. And after that, we determine the central point of the bottle without the coin, and then we put the coin and we record the experiment to track the horizontal displacement of the coin.
It's not a constant. It is not a constant.
It is not constant. It is.
Okay, that's how much.
Okay, so my question is to the opponent. The reviewers brought the idea with the non-changing volume in the air. Do you consider this as an important factor?
So to clarify your question, you mean the reporter has said that the volume of the bottle is not important?
They really say that it's very important that the change in volume occur. Do you see this as an important factor?
Yes, volume is definitely an important factor.
Okay. not the volume of but the fact that some of the gas is leaking out while the coin is open, whether this leakage of the gas is an important factor. Am I
Yes,
right?
this is an important. The volume in the bottle is constant, but the number of moles in the bottle will decrease as the coin flips and the pressure releases.
Okay, Conrad?
Can you show the video, please, at the beginning?
Yes.
No, that's not the question. So, can you claim that your RC is in the middle? Like how you make the measurement of the RC, the radius of the coin?
RC radius of the RC denotes the radius of the coin. We measure the coin that's not placed on the bottle.
So the opponent, you agree with that video? Like the RC will be accurate or not from that video?
Well, I mean, the opponent, the reporter has said that he has measured the position of the coin, so I think that he has taken this into account.
So how about for the reviewer, I would like to ask, like the opponent mentioned about the sand, the tip of the bottle in the back, the picture in the back. You agree with him, the opponent?
Sorry.
He sand the tip of the bottle. Like he suggests that sanding the tip of the bottle. You agree with him?
The tip of the bottle.
Yeah. Where you place the coin.
Oh yeah, that of course has a great impact. But as the opponent already described, since he measured where the coin was, like on the rim from above, he took that into account. So yeah, I agree to the opponent at that point.
Okay, thank you very much. The time is over. Not every juror was jumping up to place a question, so I tried to